Hello everyone, this is Soy Kripa, Professor of English Department, Vistas, Chennai. Okay, so this session is going to talk about the last unit of Block 1. The title of the paper is The Romantic Age. Unit 4, we are going to focus a particular poet, Byron. Byron's work is Apostrophe to the Ocean. So before get into his works of an apostrophe to the ocean, we are going to see a little information about the poet, that is the Byron. Okay. Lord Byron was a British romantic poet and satirist whose poetry and personality captured the imagination of hero. Although made famous by the autobiographical poem Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, it's published in 1812 to 18, and has many love affairs, and also he is perhaps better known today for the satiric realism of Don John, 1819 to 24. So it was a very famous poem, and title of the poem is the Don John, and the British romantic poet and satirist. So he was very famous about these two themes of this romantic period. And what influenced Lord Byron's poems? From his Presbyterian nurse, Byron developed a lifelong love for the Bible and an abiding fascination with the Calvinist doctrines of innate evil and predestined salvation. Early schooling instilled a devotion to reading and especially a grand passion for history that informed much of his later writing. From his Presbyterian nurse. Okay. So the that is, then the Byron developed a lifelong love for the Bible and an abiding fascination with the Calvinist doctrines of innate evil and predestined salvation. So, and the most important person is, that is, Presbyterian nurse Byron. And what are the characteristics of the poetry of Lord Byron? That is, although he is known as a romantic poet, his poems, The Prison of Children and Darkness, are attempts to discuss reality as it is without adding fictional elements. The recurring themes in most of his pieces are nature, the folly of love, realism in literature, liberty, and the power of art. So these are the main characters. The most often he used these themes in all his works. What is Lord Byron's style? That is the writing style. The short version is that he incorporates different writing styles, including satire, neoclassicism, and romanticism. Okay, so what are the styles he known for? He known for satire, neoclassicism, and romanticism, which has shaped his career as a writer. He was also heavily influenced by Greek culture, which is reflected in his poem Childe Harold, and this is a very famous themes used during that romantic period. Okay, so that is Lord Byron's styles of satire, neoclassicism, and romanticism, And these are the main themes given complete identity about Byron's style. And also, he was influenced by Greece culture, and which is reflected in his poem Childe Harold. What is the Byron's most famous poem? And why is the Lord Byron a romantic poet? Okay, so we are going to see the two reasons for these two questions. What is the Byron's most famous poem? Why is Lord Byron a romantic poet? Don John is considered as the masterpiece of Lord Byron and ranks as one of the most important English long poems since John Milton's renowned work Paradise Lost. The Paradise Lost is also very famous during the Romantic age, like Don John. Okay. So why is the Lord Byron a romantic poet? Byron, as a romantic poet, was engaged with the materialism of life as well as the interior exploration of poet's own feelings or subjectivity. He was materialistic in a way that he is a geographical, social, and political centered poet who translates these materialism into his own poetic experiences. Why is Byron called a revolutionary poet? Byron, as a poet of freedom, he stood for he stood for personal liberty and the liberty of nations. So that's why he called as a revolutionary poet. His views were determined by a powerful and positive belief in the work of individual man. He fought for the cause of liberty and went to Greece to support the Greeks in their struggle against tyrants. Why is Byron best remembered for? Lord Byron was a British romantic poet and satirist whose poetry and personality captured the imagination of Europe, although made famous by the autobiographical poem. Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, published in 1812 to 1818, and his many love affairs, he is perhaps better known today for the satiric realism of Don John 1819 to 1824. Why is Lord Byron called a Lord? Why is Lord Byron called a Lord? As a result, he lacked discipline and a sense of moderation, traits he held on to his entire life. In 1798, at age 10, George inherited the title of his great uncle William Byron and was officially recognized as a Lord Byron. Lord Byron were alive today, he would be photographed getting out of limos and locking lips with the hottest young women and men. In his life, Lord Byron lived large and wide, cultivating a reputation as mad, bad, and dangerous to know. As one of his many lovers put it, he was famous for his devastating good looks and his scandalous personal life. Oh, yeah, and for his writing. As the author of poems like Childe Harold's Pilgrimage, The Corsair, and Don John, Byron was famous in his lifetime as a poet of tremendous talent and lyricism. Lord Byron was a man of serious contradictions. In public, he was determined not to take himself seriously, yet he slept with a loaded crystals by his bed. He gorged himself on pleasures and drew disillusions with all life by his 23rd birthday. He cycled through friends and lovers, tiring of them quickly and pinning desperately for those he couldn't have. He looked everywhere and yet was at home nowhere. Do you see how this might have tortured artist me? His was a short, tumultuous, and daring life, but his legacy lives on in some of the most beautiful poems in the English language. Byron's birthplace at 16 Hall Street, London, is now occupied by a branch of the English department store John Lewis. When he arrived at Cambridge in 1805, Byron insisted that his college dorm room he outfitted with glasses, decanters, and 4 bottles each of wine, port, sherry, and claret. He also brought his pet bulldog. Byron's guests at a Newstead Abbey were offered drinks in goblets he would had made out of skulls from the Byron family crypt. At the cremation of Percy Bysshe Shelley, Byron asked if he could keep Shelley's skull. Knowing Byron's predilection for skull masks, Shelley's friend Edward John Trelawney refused. Byron's hedonistic lifestyle in Europe was not without consequences. By the time he was 21, he suffered from raging cases of gonorrhea and syphilis. Byron was bisexual and had male and female lovers. He thought that men were smarter, but women kissed better. Think your ex is psycho. When Byron broke up with the lady Caroline Lamb, she staged a sort of pagan ritual in which hired young girls danced around a fire burning Byron's effigy, letters, and gifts. Fortunately, she didn't go through with it. Byron always traveled with a bevy of animals. When he visited Byron in Venice, Percy Shelley recorded, Lord Byron's establishment consists, besides servants, of 10 horses, 8 enormous dogs, 3 monkeys, 5 cats, an eagle, a crow, and a falcon, and all these, except the horses, walk about the house, which every now and then resounds with their unarbitrated quarrels, as if they were masters of it. Later, people found that my enumeration of the animals in the Sicilian palace was defective, and he had just met on the grand staircase of 5 peacocks, 2 guinea hens, and an Egyptian crane. Augusta Ada Byron King, Byron's only legitimate child, gained fame of her own as a mathematician who worked on one of the earliest precursors to the computer. During his summer with the Shelleys in 1816, Byron suggested the group pass a rainy afternoon by writing ghost stories. It turned out to be a momentous contest in the history of horror. Mary Shelley wrote the story that became Frankenstein, and Byron's Dr. John William Hilary wrote The Vampire, the story that was inspired vampire depictions from Dracula to Twilight. A publisher accused of pirating Barons Kane and Don John argued that the poems were so scandalous that they did not reserve the word copyright. The poem, Apostrophe to the Ocean, encompasses distinguished insights on the nature and civilization. By revealing his love for the ocean, Byron was able to include the romantic elements. He wisely discussed his hatred toward the industrialization and described the mighty capacities of the ocean. So this was the main point about the poem Apostrophe to the Ocean. Again, I will call it out. Apostrophe to the Ocean encompasses distinguished insights on the nature and civilization. By revealing his love for the ocean, Byron was able to include the romantic elements. He wisely discussed his hatred toward the industrialization and described the mighty capacities of the ocean. What type of poem is Apostrophe to the Ocean? His poetry included works such as Childe Harold's Pilgrimage and Don John. He is considered a romantic poet, but his work tends to be more autobiographical than that of the other romantic poets. The following expert called Apostrophe to the Ocean is from Childe Harold's Pilgrimage. Where does the poet find pleasure in Apostrophe to the Ocean? In Apostrophe to the Ocean, Lord Byron gives us the most explicit answer to this question in the final stanza, where the speaker confessed that as a boy, the ocean's breakers were to me a delight, and that any fear caused by the untamable nature of the sea was a pleasing fear. He adds that, for as it was, I was a. Okay, so the final stanza explain about that. Where did this poet find pleasure in Apostrophe to the Ocean? How is the ocean personified in Apostrophe to the Ocean? Yes, you all have these questions in our mind, right? Yes, here's the answer. The speaker personifies the ocean, another literary device, saying that it actively wields its strength to shake men from itself. An apostrophe addresses this personification and makes the ocean seem purposeful in its power. Makes the ocean seem purposeful in its power. Why does the speaker of Apostrophe to the Ocean most clearly admire the ocean? Yes, it reveals goodness and innocence. In Apostrophe to the Ocean, what does the ocean seem to represent for the speaker? What does the ocean seem to represent for the speaker? It represents the infinite and the limit of human power. Okay. What is the main theme of the poem Apostrophe to the Ocean? The poem Apostrophe to the Ocean is one of the most renowned masterpieces of George Gordon Byron, which conveys the author's love for nature by including his unique romantic style of writing. As this poem is entirely dedicated to the mighty ocean, the main subject of his work is about man versus nature. Okay, the main theme is man versus nature. What's the poet's attitude towards the ocean? He wants his own boat which will help him to fulfill his desire to explore the sea. He is praising sea by saying that the cool breeze of the sea will take away the thick clouds and will make a path for the boat to fetch its destination. What is the tone of apostrophe to the ocean? He said, the poet Lord Byron said, I have loved the ocean, made the tone of the poem very compassionate and loving towards the ocean. Very compassionate and loving towards the ocean. Almost like a relationship. It was very sentimental and light-hearted. So these, what are the points and questions discussion was talking about an apostrophe to the ocean. And what about the Lord Byron's background and his lifestyle? Okay. So until now, we have seen what the poem is talking about, what themes he used in this poem, what are the characteristic features of this poem, what were the general reasons to return this poem an apostrophe to the ocean. So all these things we have seen here now. Now, we are going to get into the summary of the poem. Apostrophe to the Ocean is one of the most renowned masterpieces of George Gordon Byron, which conveys the author's love for nature by including his unique romantic style of writing. As this poem is entirely dedicated to the mighty ocean, the main subject of this work is about man versus nature. George Byron also discusses his views about the industrialization. Throughout the poem, he hints on the deleterious effects of human exploitations. Therefore, the poem Apostrophe to the Ocean paints George Byron's view of the concept man versus the nature by revealing himself. The power of nature is insurmountable. To begin with, unlike the other romantic poems that were written during this era, yes, the other romantic poems also written during the Romantic age. And what's the analysis about the poem? To begin with, unlike the other romantic poems that were written during his era, this poem is entirely focused on the wild beauty of the ocean that the author finds a fascination in rather than on his beautiful, loving woman. The title of the poem also indicates its subject. The first literary device used is portrayed by the title. The apostrophe is when the writer speaks to an absent or dead person as if they were present or personifies an inanimate object as a person not present. In this poem, Byron speaks to the inanimate object, the ocean, about his feelings towards this mighty part of nature and its powers that can easily dominate human beings. Generally, this poem consists of 7 Spenserian stanzas. The Spenserian stanza is composed of 9 iambic lines, where the first 8 are iambic pentameters and the 9th is an iambic hexameter. Its a rhyme scheme is AB, ABB, CB, CC, Spenserian stanzas. Thus, this work has a rather complicated form. Following this form, every stanza includes deep and thorough meanings that subsequently convey the author's emotions. Thank you.